Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the continuing reflection, contemplation, and hopefully wisdom by reading the text written by Chandrakirti, whose effort was to elucidate the writings of Nagarjuna. It was explained in last week's lesson that the teachings of the emptiness is only understood by only a small minority rather, who has very strong karmic predisposition, either due to past lives' faith and devotion, or some particular kind of predisposition that allows them to have the faith and believing in the teachings, and therefore feel even more inspired to hear the teachings. Whereas it is not quite recommended, however, to teach to people who lack all the above. But nevertheless, in the writings of both Nagarjuna as well as other teachers and Chandrakirti, because this is the most important teachings of the Buddha, the very profound and vast, it needs to be explained in order so that beings do not stay confused in their wrong supposition of what things are. And because they do not know, firstly, what they are, and even they don't know, they know it mistakenly. Even they start to know something, it is incomplete, because either it's completely wrong or mistaken or incomplete, and therefore great luminaries like them took the liberty to write texts like we have at hand. So anyway, we are trying to boost our previous, whether you can recollect or not, previous kind of a repository of karma and merit and connection with Dharma by reading and listening to these teachings. And of course, the teachings itself is divided into 10 bodhicittas, 10 stages of generating bodhicitta, because when we usually talk about generating bodhicitta, it's a wishing bodhicitta, which is conceiving the importance of selflessness as an attitude, and therefore make a vow to wish to benefit other sentient beings, attain Buddhahood in order to do that. So making the wish to attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings is just what we call merely the wishing bodhicitta. And we call that as a generational bodhicitta. And then when a person takes up the wish into action, such as doing things that is concordant with the wish, such as by practicing generosity and so on, are what we call engaged bodhicitta. So these usually they talk about how one employs the selfless wish in action to benefit others. But here in this text, when it talks about the 10 bodhicittas, it's not referring to the wishing and engaging bodhicitta so much, because wishing and engaging bodhicitta is prior to reaching even the first bhumi. It's a practice of the beginners. So here when it says the first bodhicitta, second bodhicitta, third bodhicitta, and here we're talking about sixth bodhicitta. So it's not talking about the generating the wish to attain Buddhahood for the benefit of sentient beings, a wishing bodhicitta or engaging bodhicitta. It's more like a ultimate bodhicitta, how to upgrade the realization of emptiness, discerning mind. Because if you don't have ultimate bodhicitta, your bodhicitta is only relative. So wishing and engaging could be just relative bodhicitta. It is just relative bodhicitta. if you don't have ultimate bodhicitta, you don't attain the bhumis. You don't attain even the first bhumi, let alone the. So here, the attainment of first bhumi is called generation of first bodhicitta. Attainment of second bhumi is called generation of second bodhicitta. So we must understand that, So because he beautifully calls them all as generation of bodhicitta. Semkye Tangpo, Semkye Nyeba in Tibetan, first bodhicitta, second. So this chapter is the sixth bodhicitta, which actually then started last week about the why the topic of emptiness can only be explained by realized beings. So therefore, so the Chandrakirti is simply trying to explain what Nagarjuna explained. And he justifies himself why he's trying to explain, because Nagarjuna was prophesied by the Buddha. He says, because he was prophesied by Buddha, who will come and elucidate this teaching after 400 years and so on. Therefore, he gives the liberty and honor to Nagarjuna, who can explain this level of bodhicittas. Yeah, so we mustn't also think, or you mustn't think, that I, who's trying to read this with you, have any realization of the sixth bodhicitta. Because sixth bodhicitta here is one who has achieved the sixth bhumi, sixth bhumi, which I wouldn't think any great celebrated even abbots would not claim, let alone someone like me. Okay, and also you should not also think that we are anywhere near to comprehend and understand to the depth and breadth what they're talking about. But nevertheless, it is a meritorious just even to talk and have the aptitude without doubting, and who still feels it's fortunate to hear this teaching. That's what he was saying last week, yeah? So we need to identify in that manner, because you will notice later on, as we go into the nitty-gritty details of each of the verses, verse number onwards, it goes into the great philosophical argument of the day. This is what we're talking about, fourth century AD material. And some of the opponents whose views that they are talking about is probably redundant today. So therefore, we have to, but we have to try to understand what is the relevance of these philosophical presentation in our life and how we can relate to them. So otherwise, people find the actual philosophical jargon and concepts and ideas goes over their head. But we mustn't think on that level, but we must see there must be something in it that we too can benefit, because otherwise it wouldn't be taught in the way it has been so far. So anyway, last week we finished with verse number 7, which therefore is instruction to listen to the teachings. Yeah. They said they will venerate the perfect bodhisattvas, have mastery of ways profound and vast, meaning that those people who have the karmic temperament to listen to this teaching as a devotee, then they will venerate those perfect bodhisattvas who have achieved these different stages of bodhisattva, and that how they have very vast and profound understanding, and attaining step by step the grounds of perfect joy, the first bhumi, and all those who aspire should hearken to this path, meaning listen to this path. So that's Chandrakirti says you should listen, because if you don't listen, you wouldn't have heard it, even the concept. When you heard more than once, then you will look into the meanings and then try to understand its point, because often people don't see the point. They say, what is that all about, because it seems because people read literally, and some commentaries are, by the way, also literally. They don't say anything about how to apply in life. Anyway, so the third point we're coming now to is the presentation on the emptiness. So it's actually talking why is this emptiness is the topic. And this has firstly explaining emptiness, which is to be realized, which has to be realized. All followers of the Buddhist vehicles in general, and all Buddhists have to understand emptiness, not just Mahayana or like that. Reason because in the Buddhist teaching they say 3 principles of the path is renunciation, bodhicitta, and emptiness. So even you may have heard a lot of renunciation teachings or bodhicitta, but you may have not heard any teaching of emptiness. And that's probably the main reason people don't understand. Because if they haven't heard or studied, they don't understand. And second, explaining that emptiness is to be realized specifically by Mahayanas who practice mainly how to practice bodhicitta, because emptiness is ultimate bodhicitta. Mahayana terminology, we don't call it emptiness. Ultimate bodhicitta is emptiness, so they definitely need to understand. So those are the 2 main topics, the outlines. And then of that, first one, explaining emptiness to be realized follower all vehicles, has 2 parts. Firstly, that explaining the interdependent origination through the selflessness of phenomena. And then second, explaining emptiness, explaining interdependent origin through the selflessness of persons. Selflessness of phenomena means things or any objects. Selflessness of person means the ego or I. So these are the two main topics. Of these 2, the firstly explaining the interdependent origination through selflessness of phenomena, he has 3 parts. First is explaining interdependent origination. Why we have to explain everything is interdependent originated? Because people don't think they are. They think everything is truly existing. They think it's independently existing, it unitarily exists, it's autonomously existing. So people usually point finger at each other. It's because you did this, Or they say it's all my fault, and they don't think it's interdependent at all. So therefore, explaining interdependent origination as a negation of inherent production. Why the interdependent origination is explained is to show people that if nothing is independently, inherently produced. Give yourself and others a break. That's really what it is. Because why it has to be explained? Because people often have the wrong view. And then they suffer the wrong view. They don't realize they have the wrong view. Because they don't take care for each other, that everything is interdependent. Come on, don't be too harsh on yourself or them like that. People don't do that. You cannot become kind even if you don't understand law of interdependent origination. Kindness has become just good mood practice. And second is explaining interdependent origination as dependently produced. Yeah. So therefore, if you negate or if you refute if things are interdependently produced, then you have to say that it is dependently produced. So that's counter argument. And then third one is explaining the benefit of realizing interdependent origination, which is the very great blessing. So, and then interdependent origination free from extremes. Yeah, then you wouldn't fall into the extremes of righteous or wrong. Yeah, so you wouldn't fall into the extremes of the nihilists or eternalists. So this outline that Khenchen Mi'kmaq Tsering gives in the text is very, very important, because if you don't know the outline, you don't know the text. And of course, this outline is by Korampa. Korampa is a celebrated 15th century Sakya scholar. His text is studied by many. Particularly, his text is the textbook of all the Sakya colleges, Buddhist colleges. Of these 3, so there are three of those. Of these 3, the first is explaining the interdependent origination as a negation of inherent production. To explain that, this has 2. Negating production from 4 alternatives. Yeah, negation of production from 4 alternatives through reasoning. So this is the big part we will cover tonight. Second is allaying arguments of Buddhist and non-Buddhist school who thinks otherwise. Who thinks otherwise, yeah? Who hold the different views. Of these, first one is negating production from the four alternatives through reasoning has three subparts, yeah? So the brief one, and the lengthy one, and conclusion one. So very organized, very organized. When you understand the text, they're not repeating themselves. First, make a brief presentation, then elaborate, and then conclusion. So the first one is presented in the verse number 8. Presenting the thesis in brief, meaning why things are refuting the four alternative production, how things come into existence. So that is covered only in the first two lines of the verse number 7. Yeah, just the first two lines. It says, "Tenyi tele chungmi hendak leda kala shi, nika legya mayin gyume pane kala yo." So in Tibetan, I think that translation I found really difficult, this one. So I have retranslated that for my own sake. Not produce from self. How can it produce from something else? Neither from self nor from the other. How can anything be produced without a cause? Yeah, that would be the way to look at it. So what it's really talking about is that it's because this has been the main root text in Nagarjuna's Mula Madhyamika. So here Chandrakirti paraphrases that and makes it very lengthy one, because he uses I think at least 13 syllable meter, whereas Nagarjuna's was only 7. So therefore he then put them into only two lines. This means there's nothing that arises by itself. Yeah. So for alternative means nothing arises by itself. Therefore, there's no self-production. Yeah, there's nothing is produced either by itself, or there's nothing that is produced there's nothing that is produced from other, or without a cause. Yeah. Or both, yeah, or both. So these are the four alternatives. The four alternatives means various ways of looking at self, other, both, or without a cause. If a thing is produced by our cause, which we do not sort of argue that things are produced without a cause, it must be produced either be identical to it or different from it. So meaning either say this glass is produced by itself or from a non-glass. So non-glass. So the problem is, if you think that yes, this glass is produced from non-glass, meaning anything other than the glass, then from anything other than the glass can produce this, not just. So there is a problem, yeah. So for instance, wood could produce glass, because wood is other than glass, you see, and wall could produce glass because wall is other than glass, and so on. So it could not be produced just by something other than itself. Or it could not be produced by itself, because there would be no need to produce. It already is. So this self-production, because people say you did it yourself, and this wrong view really harms people, and they even believe that. They don't realize how many multitude of causes and conditions there were, and there still are. So this. And of course, the third one is it produced from both? Could not be produced from both. Self and other. If self and other, because the two things doesn't produce. And there are many things. It needs many things. It's not just one and anything other produce something. So it cannot be produced even by self and other. That we say in the world, it needs two hands to clap, yeah? So it's very non-thought through statement. Because if two hands clap, they should be clapping all the time because the two hands are always there. So it needs other than the two hands to clap, such as the mind and so on. So therefore, so the two things doesn't produce self and other. Third one is so both. Even these two things doesn't produce, let alone by themselves, let alone this by self or by other, or not even by both. But the fourth alternative is it's not produced without a cause. So it has to be produced by a cause. So when you look at this, when you understand that. Why Chandrakirti is going through this is not only Nagarjuna has this verse on top of that, but Nagarjuna also at the very beginning of his Mula Madhyamika Tara, he talks about the interdependent origination, how everything is interdependently produced, and then he says, whatever is interdependently produced is free from 8 conceptualizations. The 8 conceptualizations, gakpa mepa, kemepa, onwa mepa, dromepa, tade tumin, tuenjipa, droba nishi shedenpa. So this conceptualization, the production, a cessation. So two pairs, yeah? Anything is production and cessation, coming and going, another pair, sameness and separateness, existence and non-existence. So these 8 conceptualizations. So there are 4 pairs, yeah, 4 pairs. 4 pairs. So that means that interdependent origination or state of emptiness must be free from these 8 conceptualizations. Yeah. This is of course this is mentioned at the very beginning of Nagarjuna's text in order to lay the foundation to how explain. The Buddha is the one who spoke that everything is everything that has these 8 conceptualization. This 8 conceptualization shows that the production of something, if there's something is produced, there will be cessation. If there's a coming, there is a going. So if this glass is produced, yeah, there will be a time when the glass will break, But the glass is produced means glass also came. So all this production and cessation is mutually inclusive, isn't it? Mutually inclusive. It's not exclusively. Production doesn't exist exclusively, because to produce glass from something, the something has to cease, isn't it? Isn't it? If the glass is made out of a rock or something, rock has to cease rock to become glass, isn't it? So the production happens because of cessation. Banana is squashed, then become banana cake. Isn't it? Production of banana cake causes the cessation of banana for things. But still he retains the name, by the way. Whereas all the other ingredient doesn't even do that. All the other ingredient doesn't even get a mention. So production and cessation interdependent, interdependent. Likewise coming and going, You couldn't go unless you came, or you couldn't go unless you came, and vice versa, interdependent. And also you can say this is same, this is separate. You can't say same by itself. This is same to itself. You can't say this is same to itself. You have to say this is same to his cup or his car, or you have to have something to compare to establish this is anything not by itself, but only same to it. Even to say it is separate, you can't say this is separate by itself. You have to have something else to depend on to be separate from. So, therefore, if this is tall, it's not independently tall. Because it's separate from short, but this separateness is not because it is independently tall, but it has to have a shorter one. So this way of looking at it makes us to say, we don't know. Everything is relative. Nothing is ultimately right or wrong or tall or short or good or bad or like that. Then you have capacity to be kind to people who don't know that, and then stuck. This is right. This is wrong. Then they hold extreme views. See, the whole purpose is to overcome the extreme views. Extreme views. So that is this way of looking at this. That's just a brief one, so I'll stop there because it will elaborate later. Now the second point is explaining the reasoning in length. Yeah, so it will now elaborate in length. This has 4 parts. So negating production from self. So the 4 alternatives will be now explained one by one. And second is negating a production from the other. Yeah. Third is negating production from both. And fourth one is negating production from without causes. First of these, negating production from self has 2 parts again. Negating production through reasoning by commentators, because this is there were other commentators prior to Chandrakirti on Nagarjuna's writing, such as Buddha Palita. So he's talking about that. And then negating production reasoning through reasoning by the author of Chandrakirti himself. Then he makes his own statement to validate that. So the first is negating production through reasoning by other commentators. This referred to as Buddha Palita. Buddha Palita is one of the early commentators of Nagarjuna's Mula Madhyamika, and so he therefore he also quotes from Nagarjuna's text and then try to offer his own commentary, and negating production through So of these 2, first is negating production in the ultimate sense. So why we talk about negating production from the self? There are 2 reasons. One is ultimate sense, and one is on a worldly sense, on a relative sense. And third, summarizing the concluding points. Of these, the first one is negating self-production through the ultimate sense. Ultimate sense has also 2 parts. First is accepted norms would be impossible. Second is that you would end up with many unacceptable meanings. So this is just breaking down what is coming in the next verse. So now the first one is production would become useless if it's self-produced. So this is explained in the second half of the verse number 8. It says here, Tene tele chungnas. Tene tele chungna means if that came from it, meaning self, if it's produced from the self, then there's no quality, no gain, because it's a mother producing mother. If the mother producing son would be at least, mother wouldn't be producing mothers. There wouldn't be need for mother producing mother, So, means this, a phenomena is produced by itself. There's nothing to be gained. Yeah, nothing to be gained, and furthermore, a thing that is once produced do not need to repeat its production. Do not need to be. So this is what Buddha Palita has said. Yeah, Buddha Palita has already explained. So why they have to go on that? Is they had this Indian school those days called Sankhya school. this Indian philosophical school, Sankhya, and this Sankhya school says that everything, they say there are 25 categories of phenomena, and they believe in so-called Atma, soul, permanence of soul. And they explain the basis of these 25 factors, and they say that a thing is produced by itself. And it's almost like saying it created by God, yeah? So things are produced by itself. You know? And without bringing the Indian school, lots of people says it's all your fault. People say that to each other all the time. So we are basically Sankhya school followers without even knowing we are Sankhya. And that gets us into suffering. So by having this view, and we don't think everything is interdependently produced, and then therefore we are very unkind towards ourselves, we're very harsh, very negative towards ourselves or to each other, because they hold this wrong view that something is produced all by itself. And this philosophical point is not about arguing whose school is right and whose school wrong. Whoever holds this view suffers. It is cause of suffering, grasping. Grasping to I and the suffering of phenomena. Because self and phenomena, such as suffering. One grasps, poor me, I suffer, because it's all my fault, or all his fault. It's worse, because if you think it's his fault, it's then the other one produced the suffering, remember? If it's one's own created, then one suffers. So most people suffer because they hold these wrong views. They don't realize everything's interdependently produced. And that's why in ultimate sense, things are not produced. Anything by one or two or three, there are too many things to list. Too many things to list. What does the Sankhya school say is that there's nothing that is produced new. They say there's nothing that is produced new because everything is already in the nature. They say in the prakrit. Prakrit, I mean, by nature, everything is like that. It's like God created everything type of thing, you know. Everything is the nature of that, and therefore, and the things just manifest. It's just, they say that it's just like the sun appears between the clouds. Sun was there already, you know, but it has only become visible to you. Sun has not been born. And they use that by saying that nothing is new. And so their argument is refuted by saying, and when a baby is born, it is not new. It is already there. It is in the form of the mother, they say. When the mother gives birth to a baby, they say, baby is giving birth to my mother, but the baby is already in the form of mother. In many ways, it is true. Yeah, it's in our tummy, you can see. So there's a very, very sort of shallow reasoning, but actually on the appearance, it's really true. Yeah, it's already in the mother, in the form of the mother. For instance, the sprout is there in the beginning, in the nature of the seed, they say. So the nature of the sprout and the seed being one, they say they are self-produced. Very fallacious. So, anyway, so let's not go into that. We have enough wrong views in our head. Enough wrong views thinking it's all my fault or his fault. And then Chandrakirti goes to add his 2 lines by himself on top of that, which is the first 2 lines of the ninth verse. Kisin larian kewa yonsu tokpari kyunani nyugulaso namge kewa ndenye mingyurushin, he says, for if you think existing entities can once again produce, the growth of sprout and other things could never happen in this world. Yeah. So he's showing the unnecessity of reproduction, because it already is. If a mother goes on giving birth to herself, because there would be no occasion of babies to come into existence in the world because she's producing herself, Therefore, this theory, self-production, is incorrect, So self-production is wrong. And then Kanchela explains that, I think I don't want to read this, but he says, Shantideva in his 9th chapter elucidate on this. It says that if you say that a clay pot is already in the clay, already in the clay, then all the results are existent in the causes, Results are already in the causes. If you say that the food that you are making is there in the raw rice, other raw ingredients, why don't you just eat the raw ingredients? It's actually get a bit more clearer than that. He said, if the result exists in the cause, then you will be eating excrement when you're eating food. There's root text talk about that. Of course, the result is not in the cause. If the result is already in the cause, there will be no need to produce. So result and cause are not identical. The whole point. This is it's actually. When it seems to Sankhya school, believe in the so-called prakrit. Prakrit means by nature. They talk about given. And they use the word nature as the creator of everything. It's similar to the idea of Almighty, the creator of everything. So nature is creator of everything, or Almighty, the God, create everything. So in Buddhism, the Madhyamika philosophy refused this notion of prakrit. The nature, prakrit means nature, that is within everything. Even in the case of a sound, if the sound is impermanent, when I snap the finger, the sound is heard, but it is impermanent. They believe that when someone speaks, the sound becomes manifest. The sound is already there by its own nature, they say, as it independently exists without a hearer. So that's what Buddha have to say. There's no sound that is by nature truly existing from its own side. If there is no hearer, there is no sound that truly exists even in its own nature. So later on, it talks about, I think we come to that later on, explains a little bit more. Now we move to the second one, how you, if self-production is accepted, then you end up with unacceptable meaning. So this is 3 subdivisions. Production would be unending, endless. Production would be endless, so there will be self-producing, there will be mother after mother after mother. So that is Tugme means unending, endless production. So that is now explained in the second half of that verse number 9. It says that Sawa sitar tukpa rabto kewa nitun gyur chita teni kine number jikbar chepran gyur. Seed would reproduce themselves until end of time, until end of time, because they are self-producing, self-producing, automated. Because if you automate some machine, that's what they do, but. And for how long? How could shoots arise to do away with them? There will be never a time that there will be no end of shoots being produced. Because there will be continuous production. So that's a. If this is accepted, how would all these shoots cause the seed to disintegrate? If the cause is the seed, and it produces so many shoots, there will be no time the seed would ever come to disintegrate, But that's what the problem is. People been thinking it's his fault, and then keep thinking that's his fault, and then keep having the suffering, keep having the enmity, keep having the anger. So we mustn't think this is just a dry philosophy. This is exactly the way people's wrong view makes them suffer. So much grief and blame, anger, because they keep thinking like that. Because there's a wrong view, there's no end of suffering. Where does the stress comes from? Post or otherwise? Post-traumatic, yes, post-traumatic, yes. Since one holds the wrong view, since then it ceaselessly produces and is never going to stop. When we can reverse that? Until when we comprehend this meaning, then we realize there's no self-production. It is not entirely of his or me or like that. When you do that, that's what it said. That people who really understand emptiness will find themselves, wow, and then find tear in the eyes. This is the most purificatory teaching that will empower us to wash our sorrow and difficulties, because people have been still sad and hurt all those years thinking it was that production caused by self or other or whichever the four extreme wrong views they happen to be holding. It was said that those who understand this will find themselves tear. Why? They find joy. At least they are now opened eyes not to hold those wrong views anymore. So we need to interpret this way. Then we will enter the middle way. It says you enter the middle way. Safe. Middle way is safe. Middle way is compassionate. Middle way is not extreme rightist, not extreme leftist. It is the centrist. Professor Robert Thurman called it centrist view. He called it centrist view because that's what middle means center. Centrist, becoming centered. When you understand middle way, you become centered. Otherwise, you are crooked, going far to the perilous left or extreme right. When you understand middle way, then you become centrist. You become centered, basically. You become middle channel. You enter into the central channel from the Vajrayana point of view. Otherwise, you're caught in the dualistic kind of channels. So it's not just talking about self-produce, other produce, try to refute other schools. It's the real wrong view holder is in here, not some Indians in 6th century. Real wrong view holder is here. So that's why we shouldn't see these texts as some archaic texts, That's why Tibetan so faithful to the Nalanda Pandita's writings, because they have synthesized all the Buddha sutras, the common sutras as well as Mahayana sutras, in these deeply coded metered words. Just by repeating them, you can just meditate and delightfully relish the teachings. And a lot of practitioners just recite these things, and then meditate on the meanings, and that becomes their meditation. It's a bit sort of I would say cryptic for if you don't understand the meanings. People read it, they just don't get it at all. That's why there are so many commentaries. Second point is the characteristic of cause and effect would be exchanged. So to show this, verse number 9 goes to say, "Chigyu sawa gele tade nyugu yibtane kado rone membe tade kyola meparengyur." Now this is talking about that a shoot that's different from the seed that causes it. Yeah. In shape, color, virtue, taste, and ripening could not exist, if what you say is true. So this states that that characters would be exchanged, because characters that was not existing in the seed is now manifesting in the result. So how could that be happen? Because if it's self-produced, there shouldn't be anything new. It should be itself just reproduce. Where does the color, the shape of the corn come from the seed? There was nothing like that. So it's not self-produced. There are many other factors. Other factors, yeah? Other factors. Kalde ngargi dake ngobo salne tele she ngoborgyu na tezeti tingichtar jurus is, he says, and if the former entity, which the cause, which the seed, gives place to something else, meaning it gives away to something else that other than its shape, indeed, what comes of the identity? So this means that usually cause and result are seed, or the seed and sprout. The seed is the cause and the result is the sprout, isn't it? Have different characteristics, The shape is different, color is different, taste is different, and the ripened result is different. Now, if you believe that the sprout and seed are the same, all this difference would be not present. What would be the purpose of producing? Because it already existed in there. You can just chew the miserable one seed whole life. So one may believe that the fact that they belong to the same nature, because that's what prakriti means, in some nature is not affected by the fact that they have a different color or shape, etc. Because the previous characteristic is transformed into the next characteristic, the previous shape is transformed into the next shape of sprout, and the same in the taste, etc. If this is so, then how can one assert that these two are of the same nature? So where is your same nature? There is no same nature. Because it has already changed. Already transformed, despite having different shape and taste. This is to say that insistence on the sameness of the seed and sprout cannot be established by reasoning, because they say the seed and the sprout are same nature. How can that be? It's just internally contradictory. And internally, one either has to accept that they're separate, or if they're one, assert that they do not have separate color, shape, taste, etc. You can't have both things together. This is the meaning of the first verse. Characteristic of taste, cause and effect would be changed. Now the third one is cause and effect would be equally understandable, if that's the case. He said, "Kalde kyugi sawan yugu ndirshe maina sawan hindu yugu sheja tesung mebam." It says, if your seeds not different from the shoot we see before us, the shoot not different from the seed should likewise be invisible. So why, how come you try to confuse us? We can see it. We can see they are very different. You see, or if the two are really one, then like the shoot, the seed should be perceived. Seed should be visible. But seed has already changed into something else. Therefore, it's not self-production. Self-production, and thus your theory we cannot countenance. This is talking about negating the self-production in the ultimate sense. Yeah, ultimate sense. There is no self-production. And when you say there is no self-production, means that now that's refuted. If there's self-production, you will have to accept all those fallacies. And problem that people have thinking the self-production, then they got all the problems. They got ongoing problems, ongoing self-created problems, because they believe in that. They don't change their view that things are dependently originated. If their things dependently originated, they wouldn't have the same sting towards anything for that long, And they will say, I was wrong. They say that often. People said, I'm sorry, I too had a role in that. Oh, he too had a role in that himself, even though he thinks it's entirely your fault. Straight away, both becomes more aware, and then no longer hold the same wrong view. Amazing, really. This is why we have to understand this philosophy that actually teaches us how to think and perceive correctly. Otherwise, we're thinking wrongly, we're perceiving incorrectly, and therefore we become deluded. So there are only three types: deluded perception. Sentient beings have deluded perception. Yogis have transformed perception. Enlightened one has pure perception. So well, you might even get the pure perception by thinking of this. Why? Because you will have compassion to yourself, compassion to others, and therefore no longer hold those wrong views, and then develop the enlightened perception. Enlightened ones has a pure perception. Deluded beings have the negative perception, and this wrong view makes person to have negative perception. Meaning they're negating the right view. They don't even know it exists. There is a right view. They think their view is the view. And they become basically addicted to that wrong view. And that's why suffering comes from. That's why Buddha put so much effort to highlight the importance of the right view. He said, even if you understand practice the first parameter, 5 parameters, if you don't have any glimpse of the 6th parameter, you're still blind. You have fast feet, you have able hands, you have fit limbs, you can do all sorts of things, but still you don't know where you're going because you're blind. And that's exactly why this 6th chapter onwards is trying to give eyes, give vision, give vision to people. Vipassana, they call it in the actual teachings, even extraordinary seeing. You have extraordinary seeing that there's no truly existing self, let alone self-production. So that's the ultimate sense. The second is the negating self-production in the worldly sense. Of course, the ultimate sense already helps us in that way. Worldly sense is the first 2 lines of the 12th verse. 간시 유식 나야 대인리고 통외 칠 대다 직바인신 직den기 양케멜레스. Yes. 간시 유식 나야 대인리고. So I will do my own translation. Looks like it says even the cause has disintegrated. Yeah. Even the cause has disintegrated, still you can see the result in its place, yeah? In its end, result replaces the disintegrated seed, yeah? Result. Even the worldly people do not argue these two are same. This disintegrated one, and because one is food, other is excrement. Food was put on the plate, but nobody tried to put the other one in the plate. They want to quickly flush it. Sorry about that. Sorry about the example, but it really has to bring this out. Bring this out. Even older people says this wouldn't go there. Please flush it. What if someone was trying to produce dish the result? At least show the result. They don't look same at all. Before it was at least the broccoli was green, carrot was yellow, dal was this, rice was there, or the whatever. But at least they're a little bit separable. But the result is completely opposite. You see. Even the worldly people cannot stand your argument that saying these two are the same. So therefore, you are the cause of it. People say that. It's amazing. You are the cause of it. The cause completely disintegrated a long time ago. So of course, these argue self-production. Yeah, self-production. So now, third one is summarizing that argument against self-production. Yeah. So it first went brief, then explained in length, and now in conclusion, which is 2 lines of the 12th verse. 대중오보 다른 중시 rabdo takpadi tenyitane jikden toyan rigba mai knows the view that things are self-produced when well examined, when well examined, fails. Both in itself and in the light of everyday experience, So it could not, it's got no sense whatsoever. Analysis carried out mainly through ultimate reasoning, because in the worldly sense it is easy to understand. In fact, from the worldly point of view, one is more likely to argue that cause and effect are separate than that they are the same. Therefore, this thesis is easily rejected from the worldly point of view. If there is self-production, it should be admissible either in ultimate sense or at least in the worldly sense. Through this examination, we have come to the conclusion that it is not possible in either sense. Therefore, there is no self-production. There is no self-production. So this is very important, The first alternative is argued and refuted. Now we need to reflect ourselves. What does this teach us? We should enter the middle way. We should enter the centrist way, not falling into the belief that it's all my fault, all his fault, all his doing has made me like this. As the result, as the cause and result is one. So this way we need to see, everything's interdependent produce. Like coming and going is mutually inclusive, so therefore there's no self-production. And then we can practice real compassion and forgiveness, because one has mistakenly, erroneously thought the otherwise. No wonder it never sounded good, never felt good, never benefited one, never benefited each other, and it just only created suffering, problems, and more problems. Why? Because it's the wrong view. Wrong view. It doesn't allow you to practice compassion, let alone get the right view. There's no philosophical view that is clarifying. There's no emotional quality that is shifting. There's no behavior that is actually practicing generosity or kindness to each other to reconcile. But when you understand this view, it will. I will not hold that view anymore. Then we will come out of those 2 extreme views to the centrist view. Then we will enter the middle way. Be that in our meditation, be that our discipline, whatever, we will then take steps. See, Nagarjuna Chandrakirti at the very beginning paid homage to compassion. Now, he was paying homage to compassion so that people can practice these to be real compassion. Then you really know how to be compassionate. Otherwise, the compassion is like, say, you are being pious over somebody else who's not, as if you're giving them a free ride or free help. No, compassion is mutually beneficial. It not comes at the expense of you to the benefit of others. Even compassion is not self-produced. So it gets even better, isn't it? You cannot even suffer compassion fatigue. Why? Because it's not self-produced. Even compassion is dependent on someone suffering. But the existence of other suffering doesn't produce compassion. Doesn't it? It does not produce. Because it does, then it will be other production. So no, it has to be mutually inclusive. Yeah? There's a concept somewhere there. I don't think we have come to the yet, but I can bring this up. In Tibetan Buddhism, or in Buddhist general, in logic, and they differentiate between cause and condition. And when they talk about condition, there are at least 4 conditions. The 4 conditions are causal condition, and then objective condition, immediate condition, possessive condition. So causal condition, for instance, your eye consciousness Your eye consciousness is a causal condition. What is it? Eye consciousness is causable to see. Yeah, it can see things. And the objective condition could be the blue mat. So if you look at the object, if you look at the blue mat, then the eye will see blue. Then I will see the blue mat, But if you look at the ball and try to see a blue mat, you wouldn't see. So there's no objective conditioning. Meaning objective meaning in the relative world, they call the blue mat, and ball. So you don't try to see blue mat on the ball, but you need the correct objective condition, the blue mat. So objective conditions. Even the condition has to be matching. And the immediate condition, the blue mat shouldn't be too far. So I'll give you another example. Blue mat neither should be too far, nor shouldn't be in dark. If there's no light, for instance, you couldn't see the blue. Even if you're looking at try to see the blue, you couldn't see the blue mat. So there's no immediate condition. See, even the conditions are interdependent. Possessive condition, meaning that eyes can only see the object, not the sound. So that's a possessive condition, yeah. So that's just the conditions. Never mind the causes. So even the conditions are interdependent. Like there may be blue mat, and my eyesight might be relatively good, but what if it's dark? There's no immediate condition to see anything. So therefore, there's no eye that truly exists. There's no eye that is truly inherently exists to see things, if there are no other conditions. See, this is the meaning of interdependent origination due to causes and conditions. What empowers people to think everything is interdependently originated has to be understood in that light, and then see, wow, do I have a complete understanding or correct understanding? Usually we don't. We're slanted and colored by defilements and egoism and so on. And then we see only under that, so we are completely marred by this affliction, and then we see them. So therefore we have deluded perception. Even the blue that we see. Does that make sense? Yeah, there's 4 conditions. Okay, now we come to that. This concludes the negating production through reasoning by commentators and negating production reasoning by author. I think, yeah. Now we go into the second one, which is negating production from the other, yeah? Explaining that in detail. This has 3 subdivisions. First is negating production from other on the basis of the two truths. And second is presenting 2 benefits of this negation. Why we talk about why it's not other produce. There is benefit in knowing that it is not other produce. Means there is demerit thinking it's created by others, created by something other than itself. Third is refuting the mind-only school as a support on the thesis of production from others. This, because the mind-only school does have this view, that there is something other than other produce. Of these three, the first is a negating production from other on the basis of true truth, has two subdivisions. First is negating production from other in ultimate sense. Second, negating production from the conventional sense. Of these two, the negating production from the ultimate sense has two subdivisions. First is presenting the reasoning of refutation. Second is rejecting the worldly refutation. Of these, the first is presenting reasoning of refutation has three subdivisions. First is presenting the reasoning of extreme fault. Second, negating production from other through analyzing time. Third is negating production from other through analyzing four alternatives. The first is presenting the extreme reasoning of the extreme fault has two. First is that there would be production from unsuitable causes. So this will be the first, in the verse 14's first two lines, meaning that if something is produced by other than itself, then there will be unsuitable causes. Yeah, 13. 13 was, I skipped it, but that's just it's quite easy when that. I thought I read it, but maybe I haven't read it. But the meaning is that's all, because it's a synthesizing, concluding the two commentators. Yeah. Kalte kewan dona kewa chatan keje tan ledan cheba poyan jingin kyo teda jingin mayin pa ne dale kewa kelan ba jamin gyaje shebe nyewant. So if things are self-produced, begetter or begotten, both are one, identical, also the maker and his work. But they are not the same, so self-production we reject for the unwanted consequences we have lengthily explained. Yeah, so that's the Chandrakirti and Buddha Palita both say we have already explained how untenable that it is. So this next one is therefore saying that how the production from other would be if something was produced from other, then it would be coming from very unsuitable causes. For instance, these first two lines, if something arises from something other than itself, anything other than itself, so meaning if something is produced from other than itself, well then deep darkness can arise from the tongues of flame, So this is actually now going into the schools, the various inter-Buddhist schools, accept the production from other causes and condition. In this case, it is attributed to the Buddhist school, namely Vaibhashika, Sautantrika, Yogacara. Vaibhashika means particularist. Sautantrika means autonomous. Autonomous. Things are produced autonomously. Yogacara is the mind-only school. Yeah, mind-only school. And here, Khenchen-La's commentary says that, but in this particular text, Madhyamika Avatara, the notion presented by Yogacara school is refuted. So he's specifically singling out the Yogacara is a mind-only school. Mind-only school has few subdivisions, but Yogacara means they basically they are meditators. They are meditators on the mind only. Yogacharya means they are mainly meditators on the yoga of conduct of yoga. Yogacharya means conduct of yoga of meditation on the mind only. Yeah, mind only is refuted. Some commentators said that when the refutation is presented, even the interpretation of Sautantrika Madhyamika, one of the two men Madhyamika, other being Prasangika, that is the interpretation given by Bhavavika is refuted. So this is saying that this refutation by Chandrakirti also includes direct refutation of Bhava Viveka, who is a commentator on this on the very text, in particular, who holds the Swatantrika Madhyamika view. But according to Korampa's commentary, which Khenchen uses as outlines, so Tantrika philosophy is not rejected here, not explicitly anyway, because in Tibetan Buddhist schools they talk about they've got so many curly views of other Buddhist schools, they're attacking each other, and some more nitpicking than others, and so Korampa doesn't do the nitpick the Tantrika Madhyamika, so therefore, but he thinks other commentators do. So let them do. It is mainly the mind-only school that is being rejected. So you will come to know that in the Madhyamika Tara, the main explanation is given in the 6th chapter. That's why the 6th chapter is a chapter of argument about why, because it's not refuting schools so much, it's refuting the wrong views. They call it school of thought, isn't it? Because people think one line of thought, they think that's right. They think that's the correct one. They don't realize that it's hurting them by holding rigid views. So in the end, they shouldn't have any views. Nagarjuna said, I have no views, but I wrote a book. I wrote a book, How Not to Hold Rigid Views. That's very good, I think. So with regard to the true selflessness, the selflessness phenomena is dealt in great detail here. Even with that, negating production from other is dealt in more extensive way. Within that, the doctrine of mind-only school is rejected with much reasoning because they believe mainly in the production from other causes condition. Mainly the Yogacara school holds this view, but it's not. But it is accepted by some other Buddhist school. Also, they say that it is correct to say that there is no self-production. But Buddha has said that in many sutras that things arise in dependence on 4 conditions. That's what we were talking before. These are mentioned in Abhidharma, Gyuken, we were talking just then. So let's skip that part. I already explained that, I think. So we go to the second point. Second reasoning is that there would be uncertainty in production. So no certainty in production if anything is produced by other than itself. You will never know what it will produce. This is actual reasoning and refuting argument. Actual reasoning explained in the next 2 lines. Tamche legyang tamche kewan gyurna kanki chir kebar cheba mai malupaya nida shenyi tsung. Anything could issue forth from anything, For non-producer, like producer, is an other, So in other words, there is no certainty in production. This means that you cannot make a definite distinction as to which thing will produce which other thing. For that, this thing arises from this cause, but not from that cause. You cannot predict because everything depends on separateness of the cause. So that's refuting the arguments. Second is the reasoning, actual reasoning. What can be produced? Look at the Tibetan text. The Tibetan text reads, Rabtu chabar nupa techir ndewur ngeju jing kanshi teki nupa tene henan gyuyin la yuji totan kepar chele kewa teyi chi salu nyugu le nela sopa sole teta minshe na. So what can be produced, you say, is for that reason called an effect. And what has power to generate, though other, is a counted cause. Things are continuity, you say, born from what gives rise to them. And rice plants cannot come from something alien, like barley seeds. So that is the argument in response to the first refutation made by the Madhyamikas. This is now argument coming back. Say you have to argue the thing that others will find loopholes in your argument. It says that a thing is produced is called a result. All things cannot be called results of all things. You can't call darkness the result of a flame. Maybe you can, because after the flame disappears, then darkness appears. So everything is really dependent. Even the argument could be dependent. So that which is produced is called a result, even though it is separate from the thing that is produced. That which produced it is called a cause, even though it is different from a thing it produced. The reason why certain things produce certain things is that they belong to the same stream or continuum. Something that belongs to the same continuum, though it is separate from the one it produced, it nevertheless is nevertheless the cause. Certain things belong to the same continuum, though they are separate from the other. They are produced from the other things within the same continuum. Therefore, we have rice crop from rice seed and barley from barley seed and so on. Rice crop arises only from rice seed and not from corn or from a barley seed, because they do not belong to the same continuum. Although they are separate, the fact of being separate is not enough to bring about production from other. That is why a distinction, the concept of same continuum, has been set up by these schools within the state of separation. This is the argument. Now, that's their argument, yeah? That's their argument. Now, the reply to that is given in next verse. Next verse. It says, Chitar netan kesar tane kinshu kala so, salu nyugu kebra chebran domin nundemin, gyuji konso domin rawa mayinte niteshi, salu savayane teyiminde shenyi chir. It says, Bali, lotus, blossoms of the kimshuka, you do not think of them as source of rice plants, and indeed they have no power to be. They share no likeness, are not members of the same continuum. Now, rice seeds, being other, differ also from their shoots. Other schools they argue that there is a difference between rice sprout and a barley sprout. The Madhyamik scholars, like Chandrakirti and Nagarjuna, no doubt, reply that they agree such thing as barley and oats are not called producer of the rice sprout and do not possess the ability to produce rice sprout because they do not belong to the same line and they are not similar. This means they have no connection as a result, cause and result, which is why the seeds of barley and so on cannot produce the rice sprout. Then the Madhyamika scholars argue further that as this is so, just as the rice sprout is not produced by these other seeds, for this reason, neither can the rice sprout be produced from the rice seed. Since rice seed and rice sprout are considered inherently separate in the ultimate sense, there can be no degree of there's no differences of degree within the separateness. Rice shoot cannot belong to the same continuum as the rice seed. This is no similarity with the rice sprout, and it cannot have the ability to produce a rice sprout because the rice seed is also intrinsically separate from the rice sprout, just as all other seeds are. So whatever distinctions you make have no value when subjected to ultimate examination. In the ultimate sense, as long as you accept things as being separate, all the quality of separateness must be present, whether it be the separateness of rice sprout or rice seed, or that of rice sprout and a barley seed. Concepts such as same line, similar, etc., have no value in the ultimate sense. That is the reply given. So that's pretty clear. Now the second one is representing reasoning of extreme fault. This in Tibetan talk meaning absurd, really meaning extreme fault means absurd, really. This is a term absurd. Hajang talchewa in Tibetan. Hajang means extremely. Tal meaning extremely extreme, really. This is a term which occurs very often in philosophical analysis. It means that if you accept certain things, you will also need to accept the other things that are unacceptable. So it becomes absurd. And that's what absurd. Extreme fault means something that cannot be accepted. Here we have production from unsuitable causes, no certainty of production, etc. So there's double trouble. All these are extreme faults that will fall upon those who accept production from the other. So this is talking about refuting their view, how it is produced from other. Now the second point is negating production from other through analyzing time. This has two parts. First is negating production from other because there's no otherness at different times. And second is negating production from other because there is no production at the same time. So either it's a different time or simultaneous. Yeah, each of these two subdivision, actual negation and refuting argument. So first is the actual negation. Seed and shoot. Seed and shoot. Let me read that. Nyugu savatane tunyam yoba mainte. And then the seed and shoot are not simultaneously occurring there. So how can the seed be other in the absence of the correlate? And so it is not proven that shoots derive from seeds. Means the view that things derive from other than themselves should thus be spurned. This is now what you call an actual negation. This means that on the basis of analyzing time, sprout and seed are not present at the same time. They're not simultaneously there. They are cause and result. Generally, cause and result are present at different times. It is only the Vaiveshika school. This is the lowest Buddhist school called particularist. Usually they relate this to some teachers like Vasubandhu and others. It is only the Vaiveshika school that believes in simultaneous cause and result, especially with regard to mental states. Some mental states assist each other to exist. When two things help each other, they produce each other. They are cause and result to each other, which means the two things exist at the same time can also be the cause and result. Only the Vaiveshika school maintains this position. It is attacked by this. All the other school, all the other school do not agree with that. All the other schools maintain that the cause and result cannot coexist. I think we talked about that before, that the result doesn't exist in the cause. Cause comes first and then the result. Sprout and seed do not exist, therefore, at the same time. If two things do not exist simultaneously, you cannot establish they are separate. You cannot establish they are separate. Without simultaneous existence, there is no separateness. For example, only when you have this cup and this book, this Kempo are talking about, together, you can say this cup is separate from the other book, because the separateness can only have to be rely upon existence of the other. When they don't exist together, they cannot be compared to establish whether they're same or separate. As the sprout and seed do not exist simultaneously, there is no separateness. Therefore, we cannot say that a sprout arises as a result of separate seed, separate cause, that is the seed. Therefore, you must give up the theory of production of the other. So this is exactly, really, if you look at it from some relevant point of view, say someone hit you, and hitting is the cause. Hitting is the cause, and when you feel the hit is the result. Yeah. So if you could not tell that it is produced by other, because why? It is dependent on where it is hit. If it has nothing got to hit, even the throwing wouldn't hit. If the throwing hit on the floor, we don't call you hit me. Why? Because not because he didn't hit. It doesn't mean that he didn't throw. He did throw. But it did fall on the carpet or fall on the box. So this way of looking at it, whether separate or different, in many ways, where it looks at how everything is interdependent. If not interdependent, it would be other produce. It will be produced by other independently, autonomously produced by the other, which people think like that. Oh, you hit me. Oh, you did this. People keep believing that view, and then as a result of that, the hit is hitting themselves again and again, which they don't realize it's happening. So that's this. So I'll think we skip reading that. But next is refuting that argument. This has two divisions. Repeating others' theory. First, you have to see what we have to refute. Second is presenting reasoning to oppose that. First, repeating others' theory has three lines in the verse number 18 rather. Verse number 18. Chidarsangin Danyin Towatane Mawada, Tunyam Mayimpane, member Tonga Tation, the Kebrachata, Kezetagi, Kega, Yurshena. So you said that like the crossbar of a weighing scale, the ends of which go up and down and cannot be seen as moving at all at once, meaning both doesn't become high and low simultaneously. I think that is produced arises as its cause subsides, So when it goes down, then only the other one comes up, So this is the counter argument, meaning argument presented by other school which believe the production of the other. The scales have two sides. When something is weighed, one end goes up, other end goes down. These things happen at the same time. This school believes that in the same way, the arising of production and the cessation of the producer also happen at the same time. When a thing is produced, the cause disintegrates. See, this is amazing. The cause is already disintegrates. So why are you blaming the cause? The cause is not there anymore. Cause has already transferred into something else. In its place, the result arises. So there are two actions: the arising of result and the disintegration of the cause. According to this theory, these two things arise simultaneously. Therefore, cause and result are simultaneous. They are produced, so we can have production from others. That's their reasoning. That's their reasoning. The second is presenting reasoning to oppose it, so that how to now counter argue it. This is the fourth line of the 18th verse, as well as the whole of the 19th verse. 19th verse. 그래서 가데 직제이는 들두 직매 대유민 가데 계신 바데 깨라 초베 유민신 가신바는 유견직로 초번조집에 대전되는 지도부는 상당 중바이 개완되는 지분매버 리뱅어와민. Now this is true if the seed and shoots are synchronous, but they are not. For if a thing is being born, it tends to birth, and it is not yet. And what is ceasing still exists, for it is tending to destruction. Now, how can such a case be likened to a weighing scales? To speak about production, when there is nothing that produce has no sense. Now, this is the response by Madhyamika. That's the centrist. Given by is to agree that in the case of the two movements of the right and left sides of the balance, they are simultaneous. That is regarding the example. But then they say the actual meaning of the other school is trying to illustrate with the example is not the fact similar to the example. In the example, those two things are simultaneous, but in this case, they do not occur at the same time. Why? Because the result that is in the process of arising is something that is looking forward to arising, but which is not arising yet. So the cause does not exist. If you don't analyze this properly, it may sound correct that rising a result and the disintegration of the cause occurs simultaneously. But if you analyze it more deeply, you will come to know that when a thing is in the process of arising, it has been completely produced. It is still in the process of production. This means that it's not yet come into existence. So it is not there now in the present. In the case of disintegration, the cause is in the process of disintegration or cessation, but it is not yet disintegrated completely. It has not ceased completely, so it is still there. It still exists. Therefore, the example of the two sides balance is not applicable. Furthermore, it is mentioned that this arising of the result is also not possible because there is no agent in existence by the time the seed exists. When the seed remains, no result has yet appeared. The sprout has yet to appear. When the sprout is not present, there is no agent, so the action of arising is absent. When the seed is present, the action of arising with respect to the sprout cannot be established. There is no agent because there is no sprout yet present. So, from the point of view also, it is not possible to see the arising of a result and disintegration of a cause as simultaneous. Therefore, this example is not applicable. This is the refutation. So this concludes the presenting reasoning to oppose it. This also concludes refuting argument and negation production by others on the ground that there's no otherness at different times. In this way, we have established that there's no production by other because we cannot establish otherness between the cause and the result. So what we're really talking about is we shouldn't be too kind of rigid or fundamentalist in failing to realize the self-production. One shouldn't think then it must be produced by other, So vice versa. When you do that, then of course one is still falling into the extremes, and therefore because other and self both do not autonomously produce, and there are more than self and other. So it's not it's even both self and other doesn't produce it. It needs more other than that. So you can say the person who bakes the cake and all the ingredients, even these two doesn't bake the cake. He needs the oven. He needs all of these other things. So when you're able to understand that, you see. So therefore, you are not too harsh on yourself or too harsh on the other. You're very gentle in terms of what other causes the condition. In this dualistic world, they're always hunting as one is responsible. They must be held responsible. And that's what makes themselves drive into negative. Try to find this one is truly negative without realizing negative is only in relation to the positive. And this, therefore, causes suffering, grasping to one, aversion to the another. Ignorance of both. Ignorance of all the other causes, conditions. And this, therefore, whips the suffering and then makes the person to create karma, action, that was given as an example, like the water being poured onto the water mill. And when the water pours on the water mill, the wheel continuously turning. And there's no cessation of turning. It's continuously turning because one's constantly adding to the wrong view and subscribing to the wrong view, and then makes oneself to take action that are counterproductive. And the counterproductive action is not understood as counterproductive. They think that's going to allay the problem. But instead of solving the problem, it's adding to the problem. So, therefore, no cessation of suffering because there's no path being followed. There's no path being followed. If path following is enter the path, enter the middle way path, and then you practice the conduct-wise non-violence, view-wise middle way, meditation-wise union of calm, abiding, special insight. And then you get the right view. This is why we need to contextualize the relevance of these teachings that people practice as a formal practices or what on the cushion, or how they actually practice in real life situation. Then they will be able to follow the centrist view. Middle way means centrist view of the safest view, because centrist view is kind towards the both extreme view holders, for they do not know. Himself is safe because he doesn't hold extreme views. He's meditating on everything is empty of inherent existence. Everything is dependently existing. those who don't realize dependent existing, then hold these dualistic views, and then caught in the crossfire. And that's why one can afford to practice compassion, non-violence, to those who hold the extreme views. This is not. It looks like in the argument they have to refute these wrong view holders. No, we're not refuting the wrong view. We're just trying to practice compassion to them, so that for they do not know these views. For they do not know these views. If we can gently teach compassionately these teachings, of course, then they will shift their rigid views. So this is not just between dialectically, I would say, those who are very well versed in dialectic jargons can only relate to this. That's what people think, These are too over my head, they say. When it is explained like only philosophical argument, yeah, it is like that. It's only half a dozen of them understand. Rest of them just clapping hands because thinks that he won or something like that. Otherwise, they don't know what the hell is going on. It's not about who is right and who's wrong, but who is able to be compassionate to those who are treated to be wrong. And then practice kindness. Conduct has to be kindness. View has to be a middle way, and meditation should be done in order to boost this realization. So with this, we will conclude here tonight. Thank you very much, everyone. So we did the dedication. So no, and